Picture this, June 4th, 1944. The English Channel royals beneath bruised skies as General Dwight D. Eisenhower stands in a room thick with tension, listening to a single man whose words will decide the fate of millions. Group Captain James Stagg, a Scottish meteorologist with weathered hands and steady eyes, delivers his forecast with quiet certainty. A brief window of calmer weather will open on the 6th, he promises, though storms bracketed on either side. Eisenhower delays the largest amphibious invasion in history by 24 hours, based on these words alone. The next day, while Allied forces storm Normandy's beaches under manageable conditions, German commanders remain absent from their posts, lulled by their own meteorologists' predictions of continuing storms. This wasn't luck. This was the invisible war fought in barometric pressures and wind patterns, where men who understood the sky's moods wielded power as decisive as any general strategy. Long before satellites and supercomputers, military meteorologists operated as battlefield mystics, interpreting nature's signs with a blend of science and intuition that would humble modern forecasters. During the Great War, observers stationed in forward trenches became accidental weathermen by necessity. They learned to read the peculiar clarity that preceded gas attacks, when still air-trapped chlorine close to the ground like a predator crouching in tall grass. They understood that easterly winds meant German shells would carry farther, while westerlies favoured Allied artillery. These men developed an intimate relationship with atmospheric pressure, cloud formations and temperature inversions that meant survival. They watched how smoke from cooking fires behaved, how sound travelled differently through humid versus dry air, and how the quality of light at dawn could predict the day's conditions with uncanny accuracy. At Passchendaele in 1917, weather became the cruelest enemy of all. British High Command pushed forward despite meteorological warnings of unprecedented autumn rainfall. What followed was biblical in its horror. The Flanders mud didn't merely slow movement, it consumed everything. Artillery pieces sank until only their barrels remained visible. Wounded men who slipped off duckboards vanished entirely, drowning in liquid earth before rescuers could reach them. The mud possessed an almost sentient malevolence, clinging to boots with such tenacity that soldiers estimated it added 30 pounds to each leg. Survival meant understanding drainage patterns, learning which shell craters held relatively solid ground beneath their water, and recognizing that the greenish scum on certain pools indicated firmer footing below. Men who mastered these subtle environmental readings lived. Those who didn't became statistics, claimed not by bullets but by the very ground beneath their feet. James Stagg's D-Day prediction required synthesizing conflicting data from British and American meteorological teams while knowing that, well, millions of lives hung on his interpretation. The Allies possessed a critical advantage the Germans lacked: access to weather stations across the Atlantic, particularly in Greenland and Iceland, where storm systems formed before moving east. German forecasters, blind to these upstream patterns after their weather ships were captured and their observation posts lost, couldn't see what Stagg saw: a brief ridge of high pressure following the current storm. This intelligence asymmetry proved as valuable as breaking Enigma codes. The irony cuts deep. While armies clashed with increasingly sophisticated weapons, victory ultimately depended on understanding something as ancient and fundamental as which way the wind blows. Even Napoleon, history's master strategist, fell victim to weather's judgment. The night before Waterloo, torrential rain transformed Belgian farmland into a morass that delayed his artillery deployment by crucial hours. Wellington's forces, positioned on higher ground with better drainage, recovered faster. Those muddy fields absorbed the impact of French cannonballs, rendering them less effective than on dry earth, where they would skip and ricochet through formations. Weather didn't just influence the battle, it fundamentally altered the physics of warfare itself, neutralizing Napoleon's numerical and tactical advantages through the simple mathematics of soil saturation and gravitational pull. Flash forward to 2003 to American forces equipped with GPS, satellite imagery, and precision-guided munitions find themselves paralyzed outside Baghdad by something meteorologists call a shamal, a massive sandstorm that turns day into rusty twilight. Thermal imaging becomes useless. Helicopter rotors choke on abrasive particles. Supply convoys halt as visibility drops to arm's length. In that moment, 21st century military supremacy bows before the same atmospheric forces that troubled Caesar's legions. The lesson resonates across millennia. Technology amplifies capability but never eliminates vulnerability to nature's fundamental powers. The modern survivalist and bushcraft practitioner inherits this wisdom. Understanding that true preparedness means reading the environment with the attentiveness of those wartime meteorologists, recognizing patterns, respecting limits, and adapting strategies to conditions rather than demanding conditions conform to plans. Weather forecasting in warfare teaches us that observation, patience, and humility before natural forces remain as essential today as in any historical conflict. Subscribe to Fieldcraft Chronicles and share this episode with fellow students of history and survival. The silent sentinels still have much to teach us.